Welcome to Reach, your platform to connect with other executive assistants and acquire game-changing knowledge and perspective. Reach is designed to inspire your workday, guide you through pivotal moments in your career, and transform you into the executive assistant you've always wanted to be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Reach. I'm your host, Jessica Van, founder and CEO of Maven Recruiting Group, and I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Camille Geddes. Welcome, Camille.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to this. So, Camille is really a phenomenal executive assistant, but more than that, she's also a phenomenal mother, family leader, wife. She's doing it all. And that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about today is this incredible balancing act and what it means to straddle the world of being a CEO support anchor and playing the same role in your personal realm and for your family. And so a little bit about Camille. So currently you support Chris Britt, who is the CEO of Chime, which is, for those who don't know, one of the leading and fastest growing fintech companies in the US. So full load there. Prior to Chime, Camille built an impressive career supporting top executives at some of the most well-known and well-regarded fintech and tech companies in existence. You supported leadership at Forward and Square. You served as the executive assistant to the CEO and also the EA lead at Plaid. And you also supported the CEO and founder at ClassDojo. As the EA to a sought-after public company CEO such as Chris, obviously, for those who know, a role like that demands agility, it demands accuracy, it demands quick pivots, turnaround time, sense of urgency, flexibility to monitor things and to be available and respond to things on a 24/7 basis. So that's a tall order by any stretch, and it's an even taller order when you talk about that in the light of competing priorities like family and children. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, is really getting into all of that. How you find your balance, where there's trade-offs, if there are any, how you navigate the complexity of your world. And I think that this is really an episode that so many mothers and women, or people who are on the cusp of motherhood even, or maybe they're just adding to their family. I think this is really a topic that so many of us can connect and resonate with. So thank you for taking it on. I know it's a tall order. Welcome again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Always happy to talk about work and how to balance it all.
How to balance it all, literally. I mean, it is the struggle for so many of us. And also, like, there's better days, there's worse days, there's days where we get it right, there's days where we super screw up. And I think just like having grace for all of that is important before we talk about all of this. So fun fact, if you Google, or not Google, oh my gosh, if you ask chat, I have to update my lingo. If you ask chat, who is a quintessential EA to CEOs in the startup space, chat will spit back a list that has your name at the top.
I don't even know how that's a real thing.
It's a real thing. I test it for anyone who's doubting. It's a real thing. So I think that, even chat recognizes that you have this really iconic career in startup, right? And startup is notorious for being intense, quick pivots, lots of ambiguity, lots of flexibility required, lots of lack of just changing norms, all of those types of things. So would love to get a handle first and foremost on how you got started in this profession and what led you to your current role with Chime.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So bring it way back. I went to University of Washington. I graduated with a sociology degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started in property management in Seattle, and then I moved to the Bay. when I was like 24 years old, and I had a bunch of friends that worked at Square. I cannot call it Block, and I will not call it Block. And it was, under 300 people pre-IPO. And there was a reception job open, and I was 24. I had been working a year or two. I also worked in college, and I was like, I am beyond reception, but I don't know tech, and I really want to work at this company. So I applied, I got the job, and then slowly but surely I kind of like made my way into an EA role. The GC of Square was looking for an EA, and kind of I rose my hand for it and kind of started my career. And Square was a good place for me to just figure out the ropes and learn from a good group of ladies that were there. And then I realized when I left Square, they went public, and we were a bigger company at that point, that I wanted something small and scrappy. There was a bit more lane that I had to stay in, and I wanted to kind of be exposed to everything about a business. And so I found this healthcare company called Forward, which is no longer available, unfortunately. And that was a wild 2.5 years. I was doing everything from the normal EA work of, calendaring and meetings and travel, to paying bills and finding a new office space and all things personal and, the culture mom and things like that. So after that, I had an opportunity to work at Plaid, and that was a little bit more structured, but still scrappy startup, to another co-founder. And then I realized that I really liked this co-founder vibe. There was something about them that, I don't know, it was their whole life, and I was able to tap into that. So I was at Plaid for 5.5 years, and I ran the EA team as well, and I grew it to about 14 EAs. And then I did a small stint at ClassDojo, the CEO founder there, and then I'm at Chime. And I kind of landed at Chime. I have never done a public company. I've never done a bigger company. And I know that I can do startups, but I know that Chris at Chime was kind of looking for that, I don't know, startup vibe, entrepreneurship, grittiness. And so I think it just kind of worked. We're kind of just like, hey, I can bring that, but also, figure out how to work at a bigger public company. So it kind of worked. We're both kind of figuring it out right now.
Yeah, that's great. And a lot to learn there. I mean, public company is
Yes.
very different. There's different norms and different requirements. So at what point in that career trajectory that you just described did you have your children?
So I have 3 kids now, 7, 5, and 2. I had my first child after Square, so it was during a CEO founder at Forward. And that was a really, really hard time, because this company was a 30-person company. No one had children, or very, very, very few. I actually don't even think, I think I might have been the first. We didn't even have a maternity leave policy yet. So it was one of those, we didn't really know what it was. I have to say, it is hard to have a child when the founders do not have children or are not married. So that was kind of, and I've been through that twice now. 3 times now. Sorry, 3 times. You're kind of teaching them hey, I am here 24/7, but I also have a family, so it might look a little different.
And that's something we're definitely going to get into. Yeah, no, I definitely want to hear all your thoughts on that, and we're going to get into that around kind of how you assess if there's going to be an understanding, right, as you're looking at a potential employer. So we definitely want to dig into that. But I think, one of the reasons we're really excited to have you on this program is because of this idea that you can have it all, right? That being a mom has actually made you better at this job, not despite being a parent, you're still able to do your career, but actually looking for the silver linings and saying, okay, in what ways has the fact that you have these 3 other humans that rely on you made you a better EA and better at what you do? So I'd love to dig into that and find out from you, does that resonate with you? And if so, where do you feel that most when you think about how motherhood has changed how you approach your work?
The number one thing is if I'm going to be away from my family, I need to love what I'm doing and I need to respect who I'm supporting. And that's like the number one thing. This is not just a job, it's like a whole lifestyle for me because I am available 24/7. I care so much about the person I'm supporting as well as the company I am at. So that's like, I think that's like the number one thing that I'm always looking for. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned having kids, because I'm getting pulled in so many different directions, is time management. I remember my days where, you would stroll in at a certain hour and you would have breakfast with coworkers and then you would kind of get to work and then you would take a break and then you go to lunch and then whatever, leave for happy hour. And it was, and that was also pre-COVID and life was very different back then. But now I'm like, look, if I'm in the office, I'm in the office 4 days a week. So if I'm in the office from, 8:30 to 5 every day, I want to be as effective and as productive as possible. So I've just learned to like, all right, I'm here to put my head down and work. That doesn't mean I don't socialize and say hi and like look at my phone and grab a coffee or whatever, but I'm just more diligent at like getting my stuff done during the day, just because then I know I'm always going to open my computer at nighttime. I'm an inbox zero person. I will never go to bed with emails or pings waiting for me, but at least I like knocked a few things out and I have less to do at nighttime.
Yeah. I think that there is a real like clarity of focus and time management that comes with having minimal time, because it just forces a level of like efficiency and productivity into your day. And it's funny that you talk about how you used to show up, you'd have breakfast with your coworkers, you'd schmooze a little bit, you'd talk about whatever, Euphoria, I don't even know, whatever episode of whatever. And it reminds me, we had a woman on the program a couple episodes back named Laura Vanderkamp, who's basically like time and efficiency guru, author of multiple books, has an incredible TED Talk, multiple podcasts, also has, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 4 kids. And the way that she talks about it is that, that even the people that say they're putting in 12-hour days, 14-hour days, oftentimes they're not. They're putting in, 8-hour days and socializing for 4 of those, right? So I think it's a matter of like really being super duper diligent and being really clear about how to prioritize and where you can't afford to spend time.
Well, and also, that's spot on. And then I feel like another thing is, I feel like there's always fires in the day at work and fires at home. And I've learned how, I can't scream and yell at my kids, or I can't get upset. Like my 2-year-old took a pen to my leather Pottery Barn couch the other day and just scribbled all over it. I didn't know what to do, but I have to hold it together and just be like, all right, we're going to have to fix this. There's nothing that you can do. You are 2 years old. And I've learned that's kind of the same mentality here. There was one rule at Square. I remember we had a board meeting and we were running around the office and we were told you never run, because it looks like if you're running, that means there's a fire alarm and then everyone's going to be freaking out. So you just kind of always are poised. You keep it together, even though like on the inside you might be like fuming or you want to say something different, or you just have to like keep that presence about you.
Yeah, totally. So what color is the couch, Camille? Tell me it's not white. Tell me it's not white.
No, it's not. It's a brown. It's a brown couch. But okay. I looked it up and I was able to remove a little. If you put like hairspray on it, it kind of removes some of the color. At least it was not a permanent marker, but still there's a blanket now that's laying there.
Yeah. The reality is you just can't have nice furniture until your kids are like,
no, you can't.
6 and older. Yeah, I know. It's sad. Yeah. So you talked about this a little bit about like striking the balance, right, between work and family. And as you mentioned, a big part of it is, first and foremost, you have to believe in what you're doing. You have to love what you're doing, because anything that's going to ask you to make that kind of a concession, you need to love it. But are there other things or other ways that you've had to adjust or augment your life? Like whether that's, personal time that you would take for yourself, or certain carve outs that you have or certain understandings that you have with your boss about when you're not available versus when you are available. I mean, how do you fit it all in and still allow time for getting marker out of your couch and all the other things that are inevitably going to come up?
And to be clear, it's still a balance. I'm still trying to learn, but I have a nanny now. So I've never had a nanny before. My kids were in extended care or preschool or daycare or whatever it is. And so they were always taken care of and they were always happy. But I was able to, disappear for a few hours or all day long and then come back to them. But it's getting harder as they get older because there's all these activities that need to be in. I'm in the city 4 days a week now. And I got used to being remote for a while. So we hired a nanny. And so that has been a life changer for me. Just to have someone just like there taking care of my kids. It's like one less thing I have to worry about. And then the other thing is having a partner that you can lean on too is also, I'm not doing this solo. I have a husband. His job is a little bit more demanding than mine. He runs his own company, so he isn't as flexible. He's flexible, but it looks a little differently. But having, like, for example, my boss had a CNBC live interview today, and I was in the office at 5:30 this morning. So it was, I'm like, hey, Tag, you're home with the kids this morning. I got to go to work. So having someone that you can just kind of like tag team with has been really interesting and helpful. And then how I always have a relationship with an exec, and it all depends on them as well. So like I said, the last few I've had have not been married and they have not had children. So they were the kinds of people that, were pinging me at 2 a.m. because they're working, because they, they don't have kids to take care of. And that's fine. I'm available. I will respond. But then I have, my new boss now has a family, and family time is important to him. And he's going to be a little bit more offline. But when he pings me, I know it's like truly important. So I've had conversations where like, hey, I leave at a certain time, but you can always ping me and you can always get a hold of me. And I will always log back on before. But from the hours of like 5:30 to 7:30, there might be I might be 5 minutes slower to respond because I'm doing back time or something, but I will always get to you. It just might be a little delayed at that time period. And so they always know like, oh, that's the middle of like kid time, but Camille will respond to me later. So it's kind of like a thing I've told people, and because I've done it every day, they trust me now.
Yeah. And I think that there's something really meaningful and important in that, because I think that there's this narrative, right? And I know you know this narrative as well, which is that in order to be great at this job, in order to rise to the top of the EA career, that you've got to be able to give it your all, that you need to have this unobstructed availability, that you need to be always responsive, 24/7, all of that. And I think that you're clearly demonstrating that with the proper mutual agreements and understandings and just the setting of expectations, that you can navigate that with finesse. And it's about really setting the right cadence and expectations for the relationship. And of course, having an executive that will respect that and honor those boundaries and recognize them. But it's really something that we encounter quite a bit on the client side, where there can be these, kind of concerns that the person that's most suited for the role is going to be the one that doesn't have the family, because they're going to be the most responsive, and they're going to be the ones that can put in the overtime, and they're going to be the ones that are the most flexible. And, I have to say, like, in my experience, it's the exact opposite of that, because there's a certain training that you go through as a parent, as a mother, that forces the ability to just pivot, respond, multitask like no other. But it's like this great misnomer, right? That moms are somehow less flexible. When in my opinion, you need something done, like you ask a mom to get it done, right? Ask the busiest person you know, because they know how to triage. So I'm curious about, like, what did you see happen to your efficiency in general when you added not one, not two, but three children to the mix? And like, what's your response to that, about this whole kind of narrative that our culture really perpetuates around, you know, flexibility and success.
Yes, and to be fair, there are some roles that I probably wouldn't do well in at this point in my life, like a travel EA or something, or someone that goes with it, like travels with their exec. I fly with them, but not every trip. I don't, I at this point in my life, I couldn't do that, but I know that, and it doesn't make me feel any less. I'm just like, I can't leave every week. That's just not in the cards right now. I also feel like there's a big shift. Like there's a lot going on in Silicon Valley in particular right now. Like pre-COVID, it was all about FaceTime. How much you were in the office, like you stayed until after your boss left. That was a big deal. COVID happened, and working from home, you have kids in your Zoom meetings running back and forth. Everything was acceptable. Like that was accepted. It was okay. We are completely, I feel like, shifting away from that now. And it's like back in the office. If sure, you can work from home, but like, are you really working from home? Why is there a kid at home at noon? Like, on a Tuesday, like what's going on there? There's just like this big new shift that I'm seeing. And, with AI and a lot of layoffs, there's also a big fire under, I think, especially EAs right now. Like, am I going to have a job? Am I doing a good enough job? Is someone younger going to take my job? And so there's been like a weird shift that I am like going through right now, where I'm seeing like this fire kind of re-engaged in founders maybe, which I think therefore, and I'm totally not answering your question, but this is just like a side tangent that I've just noticed, that's kind of like re-engaged me, with like my job right now.
So what do you think is behind that? I mean, and I don't disagree, by the way. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. We've seen the pendulum shift exactly as you described it. It was one extreme, and then it was the hybrid world, and now the pendulum has really swung back, and we are definitely seeing 5 days in office. If there's a flexibility, it's usually 1 day a week. Sometimes we're still seeing 2 days a week, but I'd say most employers at this point are like 4 to 5 days on site. So it's fully reverted. And yes, and I think there is this pressure to perform and figuring out how to deliver excess value above and beyond what can be automated through AI and all this kind of stuff. Like that is the conversation. What's your response to just this whole narrative in general around that by being a parent, you have less flexibility and less to offer in terms of your commitment and your access? And I'm really, I think one thing that really stands out to me about what you've said so far is that the flexibility is there. It just might look a little bit differently. So it might mean that you're working courtside, or you're working from the sidelines of a soccer game or a gymnastics meet or whatever, but you're still present and you're still working. So I'd love to just get your thoughts on that, because I mean, I've literally heard from certain executives, people that say, oh, well, gosh, between these two people, I think it would make the most sense to go with this other person because they don't have kids. Yeah. And it always gives me like a moment of pause, because it's just simply not what I've seen to be true,
I mean, people that don't have kids, this will come off wrong, but I am like the most selfless person possible, because all my hours are spent either like working or on my children or my husband or my family or my house. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I need to do something for like myself right now. I need to go work out. So I've learned, I don't know, it comes with maturity. I've been through every situation possible at my job. So I've learned a lot through just, being around, and then just having kids. I'm just learning how to prioritize the day and look at the outcome differently. And I think that's the biggest thing is, I'm not just like have a checklist and trying to get it done. It's like it's a bigger picture that I've like maybe just being a parent has taught me. And I think it's more like maturity. You've just like gone through it, and like if I redid college now, I would redo it in a completely different way. You would know, you would understand how to learn, you would understand how to go to class, and like what actually mattered. Of course, there's like the fun parts, but I think just like I'm so appreciative of my early days and getting all those lessons for now, for like, you know, when it really matters.
Okay, so staying on the mom tangent for a little bit longer here. What skill sets have you developed as a mother that you feel have directly correlated to your success as a CEO assistant?
I think one of the biggest things is taking care of people. So I understand like so much of my job is just making sure this person is happy and efficient and getting their job done and making them accessible. And then at home, it's, you know, keeping them alive and fed and taken care of. And like, I've just learned, like, it's very much like the mom card. And I've always been the mom in every situation. Like when I played family or whatever house when you were little, I was always the mom. Like that was just my role. So that really helps with my job, just kind of the caretaker, making things happen in the background. Like, you know, without anyone knowing. I don't think my husband knows all that goes into like, you know, healthcare appointments and scheduling them for school and the sports and the summer camps. And he just like looks at the calendar and he's like, oh, cool, this is what they're doing. And I'm like, you don't even know what goes on behind the scenes to make sure that they got into this camp. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. to put them in this camp. So like knowing like you're just running in the background and you're not like, hey, look at me, I'm doing all these things. Like you're just making it happen and you're like quietly making it happen. Yeah. This is one I'm still working on, but at home, I'm definitely more of an emotional person. I show my emotions. At work, I've really had to learn not to do that, especially supporting founders. And with kids, they do a lot of things that will make you mad or make you sad or make you afraid. And it's really, and as they get older, they really respond to your emotions, as I'm learning, like, you know, a 7-year-old versus a 2-year-old. So I'm really learning like, hey, what I'm presenting at home is how they're going to feel. And if I'm rubbing them the wrong way or giving bad energy because I'm stressed at work, it's going to give really bad energy at home. And that's the same at work. Like if I show up in a really bad way, it's going to be negative. It's not going to be good. So it's kind of like keeping it together on my face and in my head to like keep the wheels moving. And then I think one of the biggest things is just anticipating needs. That is the whole role of like an EA, is just like kind of being 2 steps ahead. And that takes a lot of time. And it also takes, you know, it takes time to build with one executive and just kind of years of knowing that. But I think having kids has helped me just like, I think of the worst thing possible now, you know, like, for example, I think there was a bunch of executives that were all going to fly together on an airplane. And I'm like, no, you can't do that, because if the plane goes down, you guys all crash and you all die and we can't have that. And it might be a little dramatic, but like, I think having kids has like taught me to, I'm like literally thinking of the worst case. And then I just kind of like succession planning.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's actually many companies that have policies around that their top executives can't all fly together for exactly that reason. No, but I love the analogy that the parallel that you're drawing between motherhood and thinking, you know, thinking thoroughly and extemporaneously, right? About like every single thing that an executive needs to show up successfully. It's not different, right? Like, are they prepped? Okay, it's great that the meeting is on the calendar, but are they prepped for the meeting? Will they have had their lunch by then? Do we need to think about that? They don't do well when their blood sugar is low. It's like later in the day. Like it's honestly, it's the same type of thinking that goes into taking your kid to whatever. Like that you can't just, it's not enough to have them signed up for camp. It's also all of the things that they're going to need to be successful and throughout their day at that camp. And I really like that parallel. And I think that there's a lot, like that's a very rich comparison because it's really super duper accurate and applicable. Something that I think doesn't really get talked about, but I know is very much a thing that assistants and just mothers in general wrestle with is whether to talk about being a parent in the course of an interview. And we've already talked about the fact that sometimes there's stigma, right, associated with that. And I've met plenty of people who say, oh, I absolutely never bring it up because I support executives or I'm a personal assistant. I don't want my life to become a feature of the conversation or a limiting factor. And on the flip side, there's some who say, no, I want to vet it because I want to know what level of, empathy or whatever I can expect from this individual. So where do you stand on that topic? Is it something that you typically disclose? And if you do, like, how do you disclose it and when do you disclose it?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's actually not always been consistent. It's changed depending on the interview. I will never lie, and I will always make sure people do know I do have a child, at least, at home. I usually try to drop in some kind of child's comment in the first interview. I want them to know, like, hey, I do have a child. I don't really go into details because sometimes 3 seems like a lot of kids and I don't want them to be freaked out. But I'm like, look, I am a parent. So I want them to know that. And I think that's important. It doesn't have to be your whole identity. You don't have to scare them. You don't have to be like, this is my schedule. This is what I need, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with that. And I don't do that, but it's definitely like, I need them just to have a little bit of a nugget that I'm a mom. But to be real, about a year ago, I interviewed with OpenAI, and I made it pretty far in the rounds. I think a lot of EAs in Silicon Valley interviewed for that role.
Yeah.
But I did not disclose that I had a kid because I think I was so like, this is the most competitive job I've ever applied for, and I was scared that would be something used against me.
Yeah, which is so interesting because, well, yeah, which is fascinating because we just spent the last, 30 minutes talking about all of the ways in which becoming a mother has actually aided and supported your efficiency and given you kind of this superpower level of operating efficiency and clarity. And yet there's this real stigma. And I also feel like we would be remiss not to say, like, obviously it's wrong to discriminate against people for having children. We all know what the actual law says, and we also both live in the real world where we know that people make snap assessments and judgments about people, whether it's their parenting or pregnancy or age or you name it. And we can certainly... we do what we can do to influence that and to break barriers and to help people kind of make these shifts and understand that these are not concessions, but these are actually assets in this like competition for talent. But that being said, like these things exist. Like there's these sort of like cultural narratives, right? So that's so interesting that you felt that was what you needed to do. And, I obviously you felt that for a reason, which is so interesting. So, okay. So when you have chosen to bring it up, what kind of a reaction, whether good or bad, is like a green light or a red light for you in those moments?
I won't say who said this, but I remember I disclosed that I had a baby, and the person interviewing me said, "Well, how do you expect to get your job done then?" And it was a very like, what? It was like a very weird moment. And later on, he came back and was like, "I am so sorry. I shouldn't have never said that. Of course, you can get your job done when you have a kid." But I think it was my first kid at the time, and it was kind of like a shock to me. I was like, oh. Kids are not viewed in a good way. So it was kind of a good learning for me. And I think that was also like kind of a good reminder, like I love my family and I'm a family person, but I don't ever want to be that person that is, always blaming their kids. Oh, I'm so sorry I was late. I was dropping my kids off, right? I have
Right.
to leave, and so I try to separate them as much as I possibly can, but
Mm-hmm.
still be like a real person and, talk about my kids or stories. Um, you just kind of get a vibe in interviews from people if they bring up their family, if they bring up
Mm-hmm.
their kids or commuting or sports or whatever, then you kind of feel like it's safer to say something about your family.
Yep.
If they are, like, oh, this is a young company, we don't really have any parents yet, then you're like, okay, pause. I might not say anything right now. Like, I might have to
Yep.
prove myself and then say
Yep.
I have kids or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a vibe for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like I know we've have the, have had connections with you outside of, this meeting, and just like being able to call you and you're like, on the road, like hightailing it to the airport or whatever, like to get your mother-in-law, and you've got your three
Yeah.
kids in tow, and like, is this a good time? You're like, yeah, never better. Like, what could be better than this moment, right? But then, again, like, there's this sort of bigness, right, that comes to like being a parent. Is like there's just a sort of this acceptance that there's kind of this baseline level of chaos and intensity that you're always navigating. It's like the hum of your life. And then, it's just, again, like you approach, I think, the work and access from a different perspective, a different lens. And it's so, again, it's so interesting because like I will work with other candidates who aren't parents or earlier stage in life. And I can tell you, like, there's certainly examples where we can't get a hold of them. It's like we're calling, they're not responsive, they're completely on hiatus. And then we'll get like a message later, oh, I was out to dinner with whatever. And it's like, okay.
You're like, you can email out to dinner.
I wasn't aware that was like a mutually exclusive, but there's, again, like there's not necessarily, and I don't want to generalize everybody, but there's not necessarily the same level of acceptance that life is just chaotic and you're always sort of dialed in, you're always handling things. You don't get to have this very compartmentalized, bounded existence because it just doesn't necessarily exist if you're straddling a bunch of different things,
Yeah, I think you just like you as you get older with like kids and a job, and you just take on more and more and more, and your days become more structured, and you become more efficient. I think if I took everything away, I wouldn't know what to do. Like, I would have no pressure to go do something because I could do it at any time. But now it's
Yeah.
like I gotta work out. I gotta clean the house. I need to do my emails. I need to, put my kids to bed. And I'm like, okay, how do I do all this in 2 hours? So it's
Yeah.
just like it's like a whole new world that I'm
is.
in, just trying to get everything done.
It is. And I'm really appreciative of, like, I think in the podcasting world, like there's a lot of voices and perspectives that have emerged, like to talk about this load, like the mental load and the load that it takes to run a household and be a parent and be present. I mean, there's like the Good Inside podcast and all these places that I think have a really wonderful perspective. And I think what's nice about hearing from you today is not only can you offer that perspective, but you're also able to translate that specifically to our audience of executive assistants, so intimately like what that pressure looks like and how being a parent and translating it to a high demand EA role works, right? So I think it's like it's like a double dip, and I love it. I think it's so helpful. So another topic that doesn't really get talked about, we're talking about all of the taboo subjects today, but another one that doesn't get a lot of light, but we know exists, is this idea of kind of aging out of the profession. And I'm curious from your perspective if you have seen that, especially because you work a lot of times in earlier stage tech companies, startups, which I think tends to skew younger in general, versus like, venture, private equity or consulting, things like that. So do you feel like there's a stigma to being a more experienced executive assistant? And if so, how have you seen that show up?
So this one hits hard for me. I just turned 40 like a week ago. So I
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Welcome to the club,
So
Camille.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. And it's like I appreciate that I'm even at 40 and it's so great, but it is my job feels very weird at this age. But then I have another it's weird. I'm like contradicting myself because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm 40. I'm going to age out of this role. No one wants to hire a 40-year-old. But then I look at 25-year-olds, and it's going to be a lot harder to be a 25-year-old to get a job to a co-founder CEO of a public company because they want someone with experience, and people that are 40 have experience. So this is a one I don't have an answer to, and I'm struggling with this day to day because I'm like, what's going to happen to me? And I think it boils down to, are you curious? Are you learning still? I think if you are stuck in your ways,
Mm-hmm.
which I can be stuck in my ways, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to have a little bit of a kick in the pants to like, really learn AI and to understand like new ways of doing things. But I think if you're curious and always learning, I think that is the key thing of this question. And so I think I will be relevant
Mm-hmm.
and useful as long as I keep pushing myself and I keep learning. I don't think if I have more wrinkles on my face that it really matters. I think it's just as my mind the same as someone. If you give me a problem and you give, a younger person a problem, are we going to tackle it
Mm-hmm.
the same way? And I think that's like the key thing here.
Yeah, I like that. Um, and there's this beautiful gift of discernment, right? And being able to really assess and know how to respond, what the right step is, having the self assurance to move forward with,
Yeah.
with discernment. And those are things that really you just can't fake it. It's like
Yeah.
it's reps. It's like it's literally reps, and that's how you get to it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
like that advice of thinking about, you know that relevance is really about staying curious and staying
Hmm.
open and staying progressive and not being really
Yep.
static. um,
Yep.
yeah. Do you have advice for how to do that, or just, I mean, talking to people, learning, observing?
Yes, I think being in like a network. So I'm a part of the
Mm-hmm.
EA Mafia,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a great network of people because you have a range of people, and they're all just like throwing things at you, like do this better, do this, you can do this. And it just keeps you kind of up to date with everything. It can get overwhelming because you're like, where do I go? What do I do? Are they doing this better than I am? But I think the biggest thing is just having a network and asking questions. And then, especially in Silicon Valley, just like staying up to date with technology. I think that's like the number one thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
when people, use whatever Outlook or something. And I know there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like VCs or things that, but I'm just like, you're just like, what? Or, when I would hire people and I would see Hotmail on their
Mm-hmm.
resume, and I'm like, okay, no. Like
Mm-hmm.
just, little things like that.
What advice would you give to EAs who are listening today who are balancing the most, or maybe they're thinking about having a child or having another child, and maybe they're feeling unsure about whether they can really absorb that or how they should, approach that? What advice would you offer to those people listening?
I think it all comes down um, to what you want in your role and what you want in that specific moment of your life. Um, I am I am very big on I am a 24/7 EA. Um, no, I can't be in the office until 11 o'clock at night, but I will respond to you. And even if I have a family, that's not going to be impacted. Um, I also want to know that I can work at a startup and that I can work at a big company. I can work at a private. I can work at a public. I want to know those things about myself. And so I'm trying to test that out to make sure I can do that. But just know everything is a phase. You're in like a different stage of your life. And just because you can't do this one job right now because you have nursing twins and you just like, whatever, can't do it, you will be able to do it again. So and kind of like how having kids, everything is a phase. You might not be sleeping right now, but in 2 months you will be sleeping. So you just have to like meet yourself where you are at the moment. Push yourself. Don't just be static, but push yourself. But be fulfilled in that moment, because your life is going to evolve and it's going to change and it's going to look differently. And I think that was like giving yourself grace, and that was my just help me know like, okay, maybe I didn't get this OpenAI job because maybe this wasn't my time to work there. Maybe I just couldn't hang. I couldn't do it. And that's what I tell myself, and who knows if that's the truth, but it just kind of got me through that.
I agree. Like there's a season to everything, and what you can do now is going to shift. And 5 years from now feels very, especially when we're talking about kids, right? 5 years might as well be a lifetime in terms of their, development and what you can do as a result of where they are in that like development, trajectory. So yeah, I think like grace, for yourself and for your kids, like for everything, just a little bit of like grace and kindness and acceptance goes a long way. What is one mindset shift or habit that's made a really big impact for you?
I think the number one thing I've learned since being a full-time working parent is be present in the moment. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. I'm working. I need to focus. I need to put my mind to everything I'm doing at work. When I'm at home, I need to be with the kids. My kids they're at the age where they see me on my phone and they're like, Mom, get off your phone. And so now we have a rule at dinner. We're not allowed to have our cell phones at dinner. And of course there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be like, hey, I'm waiting for a call, or I need to check my phone, or whatever it is. But I'm still working on this, but I'm really trying to just, wherever I am, if I'm going to be there, just give it your all, be 100%. And like, so your mind's not wandering. And so I'm working on that, but that's been a really good hack. Because then I'm fully engaged, and, like those friends that you go to dinner with and they put their phone down and they don't look at it the whole dinner, versus the friend that's like holding their phone and they're like texting. It makes a huge difference. And so I'm really, really trying to work on that right now. And I think that will make a big difference in both parts of my life.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think because when people, like in this case, like our kids, when they get that quality time, they're less frantic or needy of the other things, because they're getting full presence. They're getting full attention. They're getting like that cup is being filled versus divided. And it's, like you said, nothing is perfect. And that's where the grace comes in, because there's always going to be things that are urgent and that are going to require your immediate attention response. It's just, it comes with the territory. Yeah. So, final question for you is, if you had the opportunity to support anybody throughout the course of history and time, who would you pick to support?
I feel like this is such a funny answer, but I'm obsessed with her and I listen to her podcast now daily. Well, first of all, I feel like the most important thing is finding someone that values you and supports you and like sees you as a person and like an extension of themselves, and that, that you're their person to lean on for things. And I think that's like the most important thing. But I think it would be so amazing to be Oprah's EA. I grew up watching, my mom is a teacher, and I would come home from school with my mom and she would turn on Oprah every single day. And I just feel like I learned so much from her. And now Oprah has this podcast and I like listen to her all the time. And I'm like, you are just such an amazing woman. I would love to work for you one day. Probably not in the cards, probably not going to happen, but that's always like in the back of my mind.
I mean, we had her former assistant and chief of staff on the show.
Oh,
so,
did you? Really?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was amazing. Her name is Libby Moore, and she's amazing.
Oh,
she is
okay.
such a cool person. You do, yeah. She is such a cool person. In fact, I got to meet her in New York, and she's phenomenal. Like, what an amazing talent, and just human in general, which is not surprising. But yeah, no, I get that. I mean, Oprah was totally my babysitter growing up. Like, it was like, go home, turn on Oprah. That's what you did, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, cool. Great. Well, I can't thank you enough for tackling this conversation. I know that there's a lot of people that, whether they're saying these things or not out loud, they're definitely feeling them and thinking them and wondering how to approach the conversations with their boss, with potential future bosses, and just like in general, like just knowing that other people are going through this, that there's like this collective experience that we're all having as moms, as professionals, that we're just like, it's one day at a time, you know, for so many of us. And I think that just knowing that and knowing that you can be successful, you can do it. It's not without challenge, but it's also like the most rewarding, right? Like being able to model an incredible career, being able to be an incredible contributor to your family, financially, economically, but also just in terms of like your experience and how you're continuing to refine yourself. And also showing up in the ways that you do for your children. Like, I think it's really incredible. So thank you for sharing your story with us and for all of our listeners today. Really appreciate that.
It's my final thought is it's really important to me. I grew up with a working mom, and it's really important to me to have a working mom in particular for my kids, just to show like I love being a parent, but I also want to have like another life as well. And I think it's really cool to my kids see like, oh, mom's doing this, or mom's busy, or mom's contributing, or mom's paying for that, or whatever it is. And that's like a big driving force. And it's also like a personal thing where I'm like, no one can do it all, but I'm gonna really try to push myself, and I'm gonna try to do as much as I possibly can, and I'm gonna try to show up as best I can. And so I'm really proud when I look back and like, hey, I like worked at all these startups when I had kids, and like it was crazy, but I made it work. And I take it one day at a time. I give myself grace. Sometimes it's not going to work for that season of life, and that's okay. You just have to find what works for you. But it is good to push yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, hey, OpenAI maybe didn't hire you, but their product recognizes that you are where it's at when it comes to startup and being an EA. So the irony is not lost.
I might have switched to Claude now. So.
Yeah, I hope you did. Claude, Perplexity, you name it. There's a lot of options. Yeah, no, that's great. I love that as a closing remark. Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Camille. Reach is brought to you by Maven Recruiting Group, who specializes in placing executive assistants and support staff to the Bay Area's most prominent executives and companies. If you've enjoyed being part of our podcast community and are interested in becoming part of our candidate community, we're currently hiring for roles in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and Los Angeles. You can visit us at www.mavenrec.com to see some of the roles we're currently working on and to submit your resume.